Okay, guys, thanks for jumping on this afternoon. It's not normally a thing we do on a Tuesday afternoon, but there's a couple of things we need to discuss. Yeah, I hope everyone had a good weekend. I just want to thank everyone once again for help at the moment. Obviously, COVID's playing a big part in us trying to fill all the games, and we're getting umpires doubling up left, right, and centre. I've got a lot of umpires who are doing 2 games in a row, and I don't like making guys do 8 quarters without a break, but don't have much choice at the moment. So for those of you that are doing that, thank you very much. And yeah, just bear with us while we obviously appointments came out this afternoon, and yeah, they were a little bit late in coming out, as has been the last month. I think just got to expect there'll be continual changes. So what you get appointed to on a Tuesday might not be where you end up, but yeah, these are the times we live in. So couple of things before we get on to the main topic. If you do have someone who receives, a player that receives 2 yellow cards in the one game, that most of you would know that turns into a red card, so they're sent off for the rest of the game. It also turns into an automatic 1-week suspension. Just because the office admin is still getting used to officials HQ, I just want to make sure that we don't miss anyone in those instances. So if that does happen to you, just send me an email so I can just double check that that 1-week suspension is applied. So that was the next thing I want to talk about. Okay, coaches on the boundary line. I've got a photo from the Scott Seaton game on the weekend, which was quite eventful, and we'll talk about that as we go. But the photo with the coaches and interchange players on the boundary line, like they were standing right on the boundary line, basically getting in the way of the boundary umpire, but also just being really intimidating to just people on the ground and the umpires, etc. So if we notice that, just make sure you take action. You can stop the game if you like, ask them to go back, get the match day official to warn them, and essentially just don't tolerate it. Now I got a message there from Emmanuel saying he can't hear anyone. Just thumbs. Chris Cummins, thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah, good. All right. Well, if Emmanuel can't hear me, then he can watch the replay later on. All right. Okay, the 2 main things I wanted to talk about this afternoon. First of all, women's footy. We've had some concerning instances in the last month, just in games where coaches and players are just doing things that we shouldn't be tolerating. And I guess the message to you, if you've got if you're appointed to a women's game, we need you to use all the things at your disposal to take control of the game. Make sure that we're treating any issues just as we would the men. But you've got things like the melee rule, free kicks, yellow cards, red cards. Of course, effective communication is something we can do to warn if we need to, but you've got all those other things at your disposal if you've got issues in a game, and not sure that they've all been used this year when they perhaps should have. So one of our team's rules is take no shit, and I want you guys, if you're appointed to a women's game, to keep that in the back of your mind. And we need some of these teams in the women's competition to realise they're out there to play footy and not start carrying on like they have in the last month. And even if we have to go a little bit overboard in the meantime to get them back playing the game as they should be, you'll be supported if you go along those lines. Of course, use all your skills, communicate, bit of common sense, all that sort of stuff. But please don't ignore any bad behaviour in those women's games. It is a real concern. So is there anyone that wants to make any comments or questions about that? All right. Pretty clear cut. Let's take no shit with the women's footy. Let's not let them distract from what they need to be out there for, and that's to play footy.
I think Balesy had his hand up, mate.
Balesy, you got to unmute yourself, mate. If you
right, should be right now.
You're right.
Hang on. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah. A lot of those kind of issues occur in some games where umpires don't prevent the players from arguing, and they let the play go too long without having a strong presence, and that can set the game up for failure if they don't do that. That's just my comment on that.
For sure.
If we have prevention's better than cure, basically.
Agree. But if we have a feeling that there's issues in a game and we need to get their mind back on playing footy, we need to be proactive. That's what you're saying. So if it is, right, you approach the captain and you say, help me out here, you need to get the message to your players that they're not doing the right thing. They need to pull their head in line. Otherwise, we're going to start throwing out the cards. We're going to start penalising. You can be proactive like that. And there are other times where you just need to start using the cards and free kicks, depending on the circumstances. But yeah,
set the scene early, basically. Yeah,
very much so. All right. And the main discussion of the AFL world in the last week or two has been on umpire dissent and abuse. And I deliberately didn't raise it last week. I was kind of happy to see how you guys handle it going out. And I love what the AFL is doing. Not all of you will agree, but I think it is absolutely fantastic that they're finally making a stance to get the message out to players that whether the umpire is right or wrong, there's no point in questioning and arguing, because the AFL umpires will be okay. You don't need to worry about they can handle a bit of criticism. But what they're doing is setting the scene for us. And I know from doing this job for a few years that there's some umpires on the list that just don't want to keep umpiring if they're continually harassed and questioned and abused. And so what they do at the AFL level is a great example for all the players. And in the last year or two, you see AFL players pointing at the scoreboard, continually arguing with umpires, and it just not set the right example. So what they've done this year is outstanding, and they have to, at AFL level, they have to, with a lot of their interpretations, be really strict about it, because the players and the coaches will push every rule. And really, all the AFL is doing with what they've done recently is saying, we just don't want you bothering to argue back with the umpire. So I love what the AFL is doing. It doesn't mean that we have to be so hardcore in every situation. And I think what you saw on the weekend with AFL umpires, that they did use a bit of common sense anyway. But what we found, which surprised me on the weekend, was there's players and coaches that just aren't getting the message. And so we have an opportunity right now to follow the AFL's lead and take action, and it will be dealt with by the league. The Adelaide Footy League's been strong on it for a while. But on the weekend, is Greg Van Idem or Chris Lambert on the line? You guys can unmute yourself.
Yep.
Chris, you want to just tell us what you went through?
The last shot at goal, 6 points down, and Scotch clearly missed it to the left. I was in charge, and I went down. I stopped the goal umpire and said, "Hey, mate, what do you think happened there?" I said, "I think it missed." And he goes, "I went over the top of the goalpost." I said, "So it's not a goal, it's a point," which obviously we did play it on. And then the Scotch coach proceeded to enter when the game finished, and told me I wouldn't be coaching, wouldn't be umpiring in Adelaide Footy League anymore, and I was a cheat and all this stuff. And obviously it continued on in towards the change rooms. And Greg got a bit involved with that after that. So,
yeah, Greg, I see your name there. Do you want to just add to what happened? And actually, I've had a look at what Greg's email said, and I have to say, handled it extremely well. So, Greg, just tell us what happened from your perspective.
Well, Chris is giving the background of the decision, and it was the second time it had happened, a bit unusual, but inexperienced young club goal umpires. That being said, Chris did the right thing. So I saw the coach pretty much confront Chris with his arms folded, making those accusations. I walked in and said, mate, it is not you don't have the right to talk to an umpire in this situation. Obviously, it's the matchday official that can do so. That's when he was going down the path of we'll never umpire again, worst umpires he'd seen. I offered that he could take that up with Colin. It's his right. We went towards the change rooms. As he went into his change rooms, which was adjacent to the umpires, I heard him say, that basically we're effing cheats. And I said to one of the people around, mate, you just want to watch that fella, what he's saying. At that point, he stuck his head out the change rooms and told me to F off 4 times. So I must be deaf as well. And that's when I gave him a red card.
Yep. So Greg tried to point him in the right direction. One of my comments to players and coaches who are having issues is don't let any umpire problems or frustrations or problems with opposition players, don't let them get you in trouble, because there are processes during the week. They can approach me and discuss things. They wouldn't have got anywhere with this issue because basically the guy's got it right. But if there are concerns, they can address it during the week. Or if there's a player that's opposition player that's done something wrong, the umpires haven't seen, there are processes for action to be taken. So there is no point in them doing what they're doing on the day and under, the emotion of it all causing issues. And so what happened on the weekend was unacceptable. The Scotch coach has been banned for 5 games on the understanding that for 2 of those weeks he has to umpire. So that will be interesting.
Hold on, that's Colin.
Yeah.
That's all very well and good. And that's always been the case. But what the general population is concerned with is when somebody points to the ground just to indicate perhaps the ball touched the ground and suddenly there's a 50-metre penalty play. Surely we can't be involved in that sort of hard-headed interpretation of dissent rules.
Okay, so we'll get back to the Scotch Seaton scenario in just a minute, but to address yours, Gory, as I said before, the AFL have rules and interpretations that are a lot more strict than what we do, and they need to. They're there setting a standard, and if they allow their players to get away with that, then they get away with a lot more. And what they're trying to achieve is they're trying to achieve a better look for the game. It's very simple. It's the players at AFL level, and you saw a lot of them do it on the weekend. They just have to adjust, stop arguing, get on with the game. Okay, so I'm saying what the AFL is doing is spot on for their competition. What I haven't said is just because a guy puts his hands out and wants to be do what you described, that we have to necessarily pay for a kick. But we can say, hey, calm down, cool down. But I'm going to give you an example. There will be times in a game where you would pay a free kick for that. It depends on the circumstances. I did a trial game at the start of the year. Henley versus Pembroke. Pembroke were good as gold. Henley were a disgrace. And I started to get onto them pretty early on and say, you guys need to start, instead of questioning every decision we're making here, we need you to start just getting on with playing the game. They weren't outright abusive. It was just constant questioning. It was tiresome. And I walked away from the game thinking, if I had to put up with that each week, I don't think I'd want to umpire, and I love umpiring. So in answer to your question, there would be circumstances in our games where absolutely we would pay a free kick in 25 if they're going to do what they did. But I'm not saying you have to do that every time. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's the jury's out from my point of view.
Hi, Colin. Just a quick one. I was at Para Hills Trinity at Trinity. There was situations like that where the players were questioning every decision that I was making and laughing at my decisions and being dissent. There was a point where halfway through the game, I completely stopped the play, and I spoke to all the players around me, and I said, anymore, I will start to play free kicks. Play the game, play the footy, and then I balled the ball up. So I actually stopped the game to talk to the players within 10 meters of the contest. And I said after that, it kind of stopped and the game flowed on.
Yeah, perfect, Josh. And Josh is in his second or third week of umpiring, and mate, that's perfectly handled. And that's what I did at Henley. I basically made it clear that any more continual questioning and dissent and just disrespect, that they were going to get free kicks. And I approached the footy director at the break. I had a chat with the coach after the game. They got the message. So the next week they were good as gold. But the jury isn't out, Ian. What the AFL is doing is very strategic, and it is spot on, and it is helping us make an issue of what the Adelaide Footy League has been trying to do for a number of years. And so, yes, we don't have to be as technical about it as, what you saw on the weekend with that 50 that you described. But you don't have to be as technical with a whole lot of interpretations that AFL umpires do. But again, what they're trying to achieve is the message to the players is you need to change the culture, you need to change your behaviour. And the message to you guys is you shouldn't have to put up with the crap that you sometimes have to put up with, like Josh was putting up with. And if we don't take action, then we're leaving it for the following week for someone else to deal with. So
it was my mistake. Sorry about that, Colin. It was my mistake. I made a mistake during the game. It was a kick in. Parry Hills player, young fella, Frost, some by the name of last name was Frosty or whatever his name was. And behind me, I heard him say, "You're the worst umpire in the Adelaide Footy League." I gave him a yellow straight away. Like it was an automatic yellow. And as he walked off, he proceeded to say, "Go F yourself, you are a sucker, blah, blah, blah." And then my second umpire, Chris, he said I should have followed on with the red after that. I didn't. It was in the report. Potentially, he probably should get a notice to the club about it. But yeah, his language was unacceptable. But I'm a bit iffy on that because of the context of the game. I don't want to,
all right. Hey, Josh, let's have a chat about that later. But you're a new umpire. You're going to learn how to deal with these situations better. But at the end of the day, with some of these red cards, they've got nowhere to go if there's an escalation. So we can start by warning them. We can start by paying free kicks, and if it escalates to a yellow card, but if they keep going and it gets to a red, the league will back us up. So the point I have to make here with you guys is, let's not back down in standing up to the abuse or constant questioning, as long as we do nothing wrong. So this is where the league will back us up. But if we start giving the players or the coaches abuse back, then we end up in the shit. So don't think that we don't have a responsibility here. As I've said in the past, take the high road. Make sure that we're doing the right thing. But what the AFL has done is only going to help achieve what the Adelaide Footy League has tried to be achieved for a number of years, and that's a better level of respect for umpiring. And you need to use your common sense, use your communication, but don't walk away from situations that need action. And we had 3 coaches on the weekend that wanted to take it on themselves to abuse umpires. So I talked about the Scotch and Seton one. We had a couple of women's games where we had coaches who wanted to stand on the sidelines and give umpires a hard time. It's just not good enough. And I'm doing Pete, Angel, and I are doing it hard at the moment, trying to fill all these games. What we don't need is 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, umpires who just get sick of copying it and decide they don't want to umpire anymore. So we all have a responsibility to help create the right culture. And I think I've covered most things. Obviously, we do have issues where there's spectator abuse. Just to remind people how we deal with that. If the spectators are in the vicinity of the coaching bench, we ask the match day official to go and warn them, and if they continue, then we can pay a free kick. If the spectators are elsewhere around the ground. I don't want free kicks being paid for it. Having said that, if there's severe abuse coming from areas of the crowd, make sure you get the matchday official to address it. And if they don't address it, don't be afraid to actually say, we're not going to allow the game to continue. So put it back on the club so they actually have to do something about it. It doesn't happen all that often, but in those extreme cases, again, it's important that we do take action. Greg, did you want to say anything else on situation from the weekend?
Well, I guess,
or what's happened since? I guess, yeah. You can certainly see that John Kernahan is pretty fired up about it.
yeah, John's certainly been very supportive. So I guess that's certainly a message is that the league will back us, and you do as well, Cole. Something's happened. House is on fire. No, John was very good. Colin, the question I had with regards to the matchday officials, you know, with a lot of things that are going on, particularly where you're doubling up for a game, I was talking to Chris earlier today, I can't recall seeing a matchday official from Scotch. Certainly Vince is from Seaton, he's all over it, he's always there and he's very helpful. But, you know, there are occasions when, and we should be checking that there is a matchday official, but sometimes it gets lost in the busyness of getting ready for the game and to, you know, doubling up, etc. Can we reinforce that through John that, you know, no game will start unless there is visibly a matchday official there?
I think you've answered it yourself. It's something that we need to take action on. It's not something that we need to remind the clubs about. It's up to you guys. Make it a habit. Just as you're counting the number of players in the centre square, look across and see if there's a matchday official. And if there's not, we don't start the game. So probably that's another point in that. If with any of these issues that, and I want to hear about, you know, real concerns, whether it's umpire abuse, dissent, or whether it's the women's games, I do want to hear about it after a game so I can follow up, and also so that if things are put to me about what about this, that I'm across it. So I know you guys really communicate well with me with concerns, which is great, but we will only act on it if you've done something about it in a game. Like, don't rely on the league to clean up your mess. You guys need to take action, and if there's free kicks, melee rule, yellow cards, red cards that need to be enacted during a game, well, that's your job to do it. So it's not a matter of saying, I'll just wait till afterwards and then tell Colin about it and they can fix it up. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
Yeah, Cole, Marek, I just sort of touched on something you mentioned before. Probably something for a lot of the younger umpires or the less experienced ones is don't underestimate the power of having a chat to the captain or the captains in the middle of the game or at a break if there are issues, and put the onus back on them. We find probably, you know, more so in the higher grades where the captains have a bit more responsibility, but it's really effective if you go to a captain and tell them about a troubled player or troubled players and tell them any more from them, there's free kicks and yellows, and put the onus on them to go and have a chat with that player or players.
Yeah, great point, Marek. So that's where, yeah, you can use your people skills and your knowledge of who's who. So it's the captain, or it's the runner, or it's the match day official. Yeah, absolutely engage others to help you just to calm, get people focused again. Yeah, very well made. Good point. Is Rob McKay there? Yeah, I can see his name there. Rob,
Yep.
You want to unmute yourself, mate? And
Sure.
You made a good point when we were having a chat on the phone today about things.
Yeah, look, I was just going to offer two things because this is a bit of a passion of mine. You know, I do a lot of work in culture space. Two things I'll offer. For the coaches side of things, you know, you've heard a lot of the media say it's an emotional game and all of that. I coached a junior side for 5 years, and we had a philosophy that just don't talk back to umpires, whether it's good or bad. It just has the risk of going wrong. and that applied to parents and it applied to everybody. And it was a very successful implementation. And we're not just talking a bunch of kids out running around. We're talking about a team that won 3 premierships in Div 1 footy over a period. So this is serious stuff. And it was just, we had a culture where you just don't talk back to umpires. So one, for coaches, I think it's a bit of a misnomer to say you can't have that culture as a team. And let me just add to that, Scotch have form. I've gone to Scotch before where their B grade coach had been suspended previously. So, you know, the thing that gets me is it starts with coaches and starts to flow through to players sometimes. And just on that, what you and I were discussing today, Cole, was I've been watching the media with great interest. And what I found interesting was still someone like Jack Rewald is using the wrong language because he's still referring to umpires as they. And what troubles me about that is players, coaches, clubs, umpires, everybody is needed to do a game. So it's no longer they, it's actually we. So how do we actually all work through this rather than it always being they? And I think this has been probably one of the most significant steps forward for all of us because it's effectively brought it to everybody's attention, and there's no grey area. It's black or white. You know, it's dissent or it's not. So Gory, I'm a bit clearer. It's dissent or it's not. And you make the call, you make the judgment, you've got the right to do it. So that's just my view, Cole. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We could probably talk through this all night, but I really, I'll allow anyone else to say a couple of quick words before we wind up. But does anyone else really want to have a say?
Just want to, I'll just piggyback what Rob said there. I've been saying for a while now, it's definitely an overall cultural thing that needs to start from the top. So I'm with you, Cole, in that the implementation of it at the higher level is only going to have better results down the chain because everyone learns from what they see out there on TV or on the ground on match day. So like you said, I think it is an opportunity to kind of embrace the fact that we're in a position where we can contribute to the bettering of that culture.
Yeah, well spoken, Josh. And I guess I'll just repeat what John Kernahan said to me before, and he would have liked to have been on tonight, but he had another meeting to go to. The league and John will back us up as long as we don't do anything wrong ourselves. So make sure you take the high road. Make sure that you're always respectful and trying to do the right thing. And if you don't lower yourself to the level of the player or the coach or whoever it is, then you've got the league will have you back. Rob, did you want to? Rob Midland, I see you've unmuted yourself. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think a lot of the AFL players have adjusted. I've heard Scott Pendlebury and a few others talk on it. They've adjusted pretty well to this new rule. The body that hasn't adjusted to it is the media. And the talk of the likes of a Brian Taylor or Richo saying, surely you're allowed to ask the question. What the AFL hasn't done, in my view, is brought them along in terms of what they're trying to implement. Because the average punter on the street watches an AFL match, they listen to the commentators, and they come out and watch us on the weekend. And then we have to deal with some of that flow-on effect of the carry-on of a BT or somebody like that.
Yeah. I think you have to understand that the media, they're employed to get clicks, to get people, opening up their articles, or this is that they design what they're saying to fire people up and get the debate. So yeah, you can't expect them to be saying what the AFL and us want to say. They are always going to come across it and get people talking about it. So we just have to be aware that that's just the media. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate your contributions there. Yes, this will be an ongoing issue. If you guys have concerns or things you want to talk through, by all means, yeah, give us a buzz. But yeah, just to know that the league has our back, and certainly we just need to make sure that we help with the culture change, and with us doing the right thing on game day, and then making the league or myself aware of it. There will be things done during the week to follow up. We had a fairly ordinary game between Eastern Park and Woodville South in a women's game in round 1, and the clubs were put on notice, and they've been good as gold since. So that's where yeah, a combined effort from what the umpires do on the day and the league standing up to that misbehaviour will have an effect. And for the coaches or whoever's responsible for setting the standard in a on game day, if they don't change their ways, they're not going to last. And so, yeah, all right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on Tuesday night, which is sort of out of the norm. But I did want to have this discussion early on this week in the lead up to this weekend, and look forward to seeing most of you back tomorrow. I'm out of ISO tomorrow, so I'll be at training. Can't wait. Go on, you guys.